I was born in Yorkton, Saskatchewan on August 31st, 1938 in the old Queen Elizabeth Hospital, I think it was called, in Yorkton, which is, hospital is no longer there. Yorkton is still there, surprisingly, but...
And I was born in Yorkton too. And like I said, I was born December 20th, and my mom said she was home for Christmas because years ago they were in the hospital. If the babies were born in the hospital, they were there usually for 10 days. But I was the fourth child, so they let her go home early, I guess.
We were very dirt poor in those days. It was just after the dirty 30s. Wealth wasn't common around there. I don't remember my dad going away to the World War, but he was gone for 5 years. I was only 2 years old when he left. I don't remember him leaving. I don't remember him coming back either in that space of time, but I know we moved from house to house. I had 3 older brothers and a younger sister at the time, and the younger brother who was born later on. And I know my mom scratched and done everything they could. My mother's parents lived with us as well. And eventually we moved to an old, we call it the cowboy house. No plumbing, no bathrooms, no nothing like that. I remember we had a bath on Friday evenings. The sister went first because she was the girl in the house. And the boys all bathed in the same water after she was done. And the water got chucked out. There was no place to pour it but outside. And yeah, we lived in that house for a number of years. Then eventually Joyce and her mom moved in with us because they had no place to stay either. I say wealth wasn't common then. We were all in the same boat and trying to just survive the time till our dads and husbands came home. And it was a poor time, I have to admit. And we suffered through lots, but we got through it.
Yeah, and I don't really think that at the time we thought or knew we were poor. It was just how it was. Like, we lived on 12 Raymond Avenue is the earliest that I can remember. And then when your mom and I guess the family asked us to move in there, I'm not even really sure how we did get there, but we were there. We lived in the back of the house, and you guys lived in the front. Mm-hmm. And I remember your grandma, Schneider,
that was my mother's maiden name was Schneider.
Yeah, laying on the bed in the front because she had a foot amputated because of diabetes. Mm-hmm. And
Deja vu.
You know, that's about that's about all I really remember about that. And then when Dad came home from the army, I don't think we were there very long, and we bought a house. He bought the house on McFarland, and again, it had no running water. We had we had a well.
Gravel roads.
Yes, there was no lights on the street.
If there was, we knocked them out anyway. So
we did, yes.
Yeah, we kids. There was no television then. There wasn't cell phones. That's for sure. No television, no tablets. Your entertainment was outside. We played ball over on the hill. A whole bunch of us that would get together until dark, and then it was hide and go seek after dark. And
then, like you said, if there was lights,
we broke them so they wouldn't find you. And they were just bulbs up in a enamel type of a light fixture. Yeah, so they were easy to break. Yeah, I remember. I don't know where I got a hockey stick from. Probably a broken one from a game. And all we had for pucks was horse turds. I kid you not. That's what we played hockey with. It was little horse turds on the road till they broke down and disappeared. Then you get another one and go again. Yeah, it was. That was our fun.
Yeah. I think back now because Annie was asking me questions too. One time we were coming back from Calgary, and I said, I'm so sorry now that I didn't ask more questions of my parents, but you just didn't do it. I don't know. It just, how they became friends or.
And when the dads came home from the war, they never talked about the war.
Never, no.
You couldn't get one iota out of them.
No.
They sort of kept it all inside. But I remember going down to the General Ross Armories when they presented the medals to our dads, and that's one of the few things I remember after he came back. Then he went. He worked for the CPR, driving a delivery truck there, and then he went into a long haul, driving after and hauling, and eventually we bought a wartime house. It was called then. Mm-hmm. Got into the plumbing and plumbing and indoor heating, everything, as opposed to in the old house, we would get a carload of wood every winter from our relatives up in Oakland, Saskatchewan. They shipped down a carload of logs, and we would get them cut up in our backyard and chop wood all winter to keep the home fires going. Yeah.
When we moved to McFarland, again, like I said, there was a well right outside the door, and then the biff. But we had a little barn in the backyard, which my dad pulled down after a few years, I think. But yeah, it wasn't an easy time for sure. But like I say, I don't really remember saying, "God, we were so poor." I just don't remember thinking that. That we didn't have as much as the next person.
I think most of us were in the same boat. That's probably why. So nobody thought, well, look at them poor people. It's just that we didn't have the things you have today when you're down. No, there was no such thing as a food bank then. No. You got what you could get, and that's it.
Oh yeah, I went to Simpson School to grade 8, and then I went to the Yorkton Collegiate till grade 11. Finished my grade 11. And then I think my dad decided that I should get a job. So I did that. I got a job at Metropolitan Store. I worked in the candy department for a bit, and then I went up into the office. And I stayed there. I was there till we got married.
Yeah. We took her away from all the drudgery.
Yeah.
What kind of tasks would you do at the store?
Well, in the candy department, I just had to serve candy, and I had jewelry at the time too. And then in the office, I did the cashier. You have to go down and get all the money out of the registers, and I'd have to count it and balance it, and file all the anything that needed filing. And I remember they were clusters. Like almost like a Mr. Big Bar, and I think I sold the most of those. But your parents used to come in. Your dad always came in and bought candy.
Yeah. I never saw him.
Yeah, he liked me.
I think he kept them in his pocket. Never brought them out. But yeah. We went to the same school. I went to Simpson School, same as Bub did. I call her Bub, by the way, not Joyce. Joyce is much too formal. I call her Bub, and we went to school together for 8 years at Simpson School. Went to high school, never associated in high school. I went from grade 10, I went into commercial class in grade 11. I was going to be a courthouse stenographer of all things. That was a plan I had, and then I got out of that, and I turned 17, and I joined the Navy. It wasn't until after I come back from the Navy that we actually got together, and that was in 1960. Actually, we got together earlier,
59.
I got out of the Navy in 60, but I went home I was home on leave, as a matter of fact, and for the summer, and I met her at the fair. She was with a friend of hers, and I had this little nurse I was courting then, and I dumped her, and I seen her, and we hooked up.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Well, that's pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
You were with...
Then as a matter of fact, I was 3 days late going back. It cost me a $90 fine. And probably about 2 weeks of no leave. But it was well worth it. Then, in matter of fact, I'd fly back to get there back and it'd still be 3 days late.
Yes.
Flying wasn't a big option then. I had to get a fly now, pay later plan. It was $300 to fly from Yorkton, Actually, I flew right from Yorkton.
Did, yeah.
There was an airline came into Yorkton then. It was Trans-Canada Airlines
TCA,
came in there.
Yeah.
I flew from there to Winnipeg, then Winnipeg to Halifax. And I got back late, as I said, and I got fined for that being late, and I absent without leave, and I got detention and
some kisses.
but it was worth it. Yeah.
Kisses
You only get made $90 a month was all they paid you. So if you get fined 80, it doesn't leave very much for smokes. And then I got home at Christmas time. That's when I came home. Then
we wrote
Then we
all
got
summer.
engaged then, at Christmas time.
Yeah. The letters, like I said, the letters started Dear Joyce. And then as they got along closer to December, they were a little more romantic.
Yeah.
Didn't have a clue that he was coming over Christmas Eve with a ring.
Yeah.
But I guess your mom and dad phoned my mom and said, Harvey wants to give Joyce a ring, so they're coming over. And actually, I was in the bathroom at the time. I didn't know that they were all coming. and I was in the bathroom getting some makeup or doing whatever. And he said, he got there and he said, "Are you coming out?" And I said, "No, I'm not ready yet." And he said, "Well, then I'm coming in." So that's where he proposed to me, in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a dozen roses and a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
I'll show you my roses.
Let me hold your coffee, huh?
There's my roses.
You still have the roses?
Yeah. They don't. There's some
So the
coming.
chocolates were in the
But the
box.
chocolates were, it says Trump Brinkt Freud, whatever. And they're from Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you're interested, but I do have a box here that I sealed many years ago. And it says Joyce Stemner. And I've told my kids that they will burn with me when I go.
They're
That they
sealed
can't
up.
open them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are all the letters that Harvey wrote to me when he was in the Navy. And that was just for, well, you went back,
I went back
In
in
July.
yeah.
you came home in Christmas, we got
Yeah.
engaged, and then you went back till September.
Till I got out, then I got
Yes.
released then, yeah.
So we only dated probably all in all a week.
2 nights. But it isn't as though I didn't know her.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I
for
wasn't trying to find. Exactly.
no.
In fact, her mother said, "You could have done better than him, couldn't you?"
She did that, and you always say that.
So her mom and I had a good relationship.
For
Yeah.
sure.
You know, give you a coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
No, it was
yeah.
fun times then.
Yeah.
In the Navy, I spent 5 years in there, and it was an interesting 5 years for me because I made an awful lot of nice trips, and I was over to Germany, Sweden, Denmark, England several times, and down the American East Coast and different ports, and down to San Juan, Puerto Rico several times, and I lived in Bermuda for 6 months. I was a radio operator, so we had a station there. And it was interesting 5 years. But that's all I wanted to do was 5 years. That was my commitment to 5 years, and that was it. I was a radio operator. Yeah, I'd done the Morse code.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember taking Zachary to a pioneer show at the museum in Saskatoon. And they had a railroad Morse code set up there, and I went dotty 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 dit. He said, "We don't use dotty 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 dit." so I just showed Zach when I'd done it. I could work that Morse code sender. Yeah, I can't think what it was.
No, I remember. Yeah, it was at the WDM.
Yeah, the Western Development Museum. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
but they were railroad people, and they didn't work the same as we did. Yeah. In fact, when I got out of the Navy, I was thinking I might go up to they had a DEW line, and the DEW line was the radar line in northern Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It was run by NORAD and North American Air Defense and Canadian Army. They had radar bases all across the northern part of the Yukon and everything. But it was isolation, and I couldn't have taken my sweetheart with me, so I cashed out on that one.
You got a tattoo in the Navy.
Yeah, it's not much of a tattoo.
Mom and Dad.
So you got was this pre or post tattoo that you met him? Was it? I guess when did you?
I think I already had the tattoo, and
Yes.
otherwise I probably wouldn't have got Mom and Dad put on there. Yeah, you can hardly make it out now. It was roses and leaves and Mom and Dad on scrolls across here. It cost me all of $10, and of course they had a couple of beers before we went and got tattoos, and I was sorry as heck. Next day it hurt so much. Thing is, in the Navy, if you got a tattoo and got ill, again, you would get fined or something because you're derelict in doing your stuff, so you have to be careful. You couldn't get infection, that's for sure, and go to sick bay because they know right away it's from the tattoo, so they frowned upon that. So I had some good years in the Navy, some good interesting trips, but again, like I say, 5 years was enough for me. Yeah.
You were writing letters back and forth.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys get home, you get engaged almost right away, or did you get
So
engaged?
it was 4 months after.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
the Christmas
right.
time. We started in
'Cause we
July
started
and
July
then
19th,
Christmas
I think,
time.
'cause
Yeah.
It was the Yorkton exhibition. And it was Tuesday night that you were there with that gal.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday night when my friend
It's
and I-
ironic because I'll tell you right now, she was the girl that was killed in Saskatoon, the
Yes.
nurse.
No way.
Wucherik,
Ucherik that was killed in Saskatoon.
Okay.
She was a nurse that I had at the fair.
and they always suspected
Colin.
Colin Thatcher.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I was away in the Navy.
Yes.
When that happened.
So then Wednesday night when Irene and I went to the X, you were standing waiting at the gate for us. You didn't know that we were coming, or I didn't know you were going to be there either, but they were waiting for us.
That was a big Yorkton exhibition. It was always in about the middle of July. It ran for
3 days.
three days, I
3
think.
days, yeah.
And it was homecoming week because everybody that you knew would show up at the fair.
Yeah.
It wasn't the X, it was the fair then, the
fair, yeah.
Yorkton Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. And then so he wants to take me on a ride, and it was called the Rocket. There was one on the top and one on the bottom, and it would go around this way.
It went this way. Yeah,
It was this way,
Yeah.
and then this way. And but I had to give him 10 cents because he didn't have enough to pay for my ticket.
I wasn't very flush then. I used all my money to buy stuff for Bub,
Yeah.
so there wasn't any left for entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that's when we started, and then when you drove me home, you said or you asked me to go to the drive-in theater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The next night.
I was smooth then.
Oh yeah, was he ever smooth?
Went to the drive-in, said I got to go get some popcorn. Come back to the popcorn, just slid in the passenger side. in the old cars, there was no console in the middle, so yeah, you could slide either way then, you know. So
I didn't want to get the steering wheel in the way.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, smooth move.
Do you remember the movie or the car? Or
No,
Oh, the car was my dad's '59 Meteor. Yeah,
black and white Meteor.
yeah, he
nice
bought
car.
that new. That's the
the picture
one that
we
shows
have,
up in that picture up there.
One of Grandpa and I
wedding.
standing by the car.
oh no, that, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
my
in
mom
that's
took
in
that.
front of the house on McFarland
McFarland,
Avenue.
Yeah.
That was the '59 Meteor that my dad had bought, stick shift. Yeah, but a nice, beautiful car it was. It was a nice car.
It was.
And while I was driving it one night, we went out. I think the battery was a bit low, so I was going to charge it up by going out on the road and give it a bit of a road trip. And yeah, you say it like Zachy would say, going for a rip.
Yeah.
Went for a rip and I hit a darn cow. I could heard a
All
cow.
these Black
yeah.
and Gus.
Yeah,
Black Angus.
about 4 miles from town, this herd of cows come out of the ditch, and
Rousies.
I managed to hit the last one, spun the car around, and oh crap, smashed the fender all to pieces.
So he goes home. He goes home and he goes to bed. Or before he goes to bed, he writes a note to his dad: "Wake me up before you go to work." So on the note was when
Because
he got
he
up.
would have gone with the car, but
Yeah, on the note, fix it.
that's all he wrote was fix it.
Dad
Yeah.
wrote, "Fix it."
But
Yeah.
fortunately, my future brother-in-law had worked as a body shop then, so I was able to get it fixed for a nominal fee. But my dad wasn't too impressed with me then.
No.
And he was the guy whose cow he hit. He wanted to sue me for hitting his cow.
And they were all loose.
Yeah, and they were running loose, but there was some kind of range laws or something that allowed them to have the cattle wherever they wanted to have them, and they were free to roam. So, but I never got charged with anything, so I was lucky. When I first met her, we were this big.
I guess
Yeah, it depends. When I would go. Like I say, we didn't socialize all the time through school or high school or any of that. I knew her. I'd see her the odd time. It was just hello, hello. That's all there was to it. But when I was going away, she developed very nicely. When I don't know why, but they're just like a moth, like a what do you call it? A chrysalis comes out, and there's a moth, and it's beautiful. And that's what I saw.
Wow, I've never heard that.
A butterfly.
A butterfly, not a moth.
Okay, we'll say butterfly. We'll say
The imagery is nice. But a butterfly.
We'll say butterfly. There's some nice moths.
That's good.
Yeah.
Pretty moth.
Yeah, you got that, huh?
And I remember like our first date that we went to the drive-in theater. And he came back and he sat on that side. And I thought, smooth guy. And I mean, my thinking, I think at the time was, I've known this guy most of my life. I can't imagine dating him really, but after the first kiss, and it kind of, it was there.
She was locked.
I was, yeah, I was locked, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like I said, through our letters really is where our love blossomed. And that's going to be, 58 years?
58 years next
58
February the
years in
4th,
February, yeah. So that's a long time.
And fortunately, after this year, we can hopefully still make it,
Yes. Yeah, because we've had a journey this year for sure.
Because when I got out of the Navy, we moved to,
Yeah.
I got out in the end of August. I turned 17 on August 31st, and that's when I joined the Navy, so I got out August 31st, 5 years later. But I was still in the Navy actually for another 30 days, so I couldn't do much. And so I went into Winnipeg. I had a cousin who worked for the Winnipeg Police Force, and he asked me to come in there and see if I wanted to join the police force. So I went to Winnipeg and I had the interview and the medical and everything, and they snapped me up just like that. And but I couldn't start until January the 1st. So I went back to Yorkton until January the 1st. And
No, you were in there a week ahead because I flew in for New Year's.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
I went in a week ahead.
Yeah.
And then I started New Year's Eve, and it was 40 below.
Yeah.
And I wore, as Zachary calls it, a fur coat. It was actually a buffalo coat and a fur hat. I think the buffalo coat weighed, a little less than 200 pounds, almost more than me. But I think it weighed something like 30 pounds or something like that. And I had and it was 40 below the night I started. And I was walking the beat with another guy, and I think about 3 hours in, I thought somebody stabbed me in the back of the neck. I was so cold from holding my shoulders up and trying to keep my ears warm, and it was a terrible night, but I got through that one, and I persevered for another 5 years. Actually, in February, I said to Bob, "This is crazy. I'm in Winnipeg, and you're living in Yorkton." So I said, "You come in here, and I'll come home, we'll get married, and come back here."
Yeah.
That was February the 4th, yeah.
Yeah.
I started January the 1st,
right.
and it was February the 4th. I had one paycheck in my pocket.
Yeah,
I went and
You went
I got to have a place to live, so I went and I got an apartment at the
San Rita.
San Rita Apartments down on Corden Avenue, and I took a lease on that for a year, I think it was, and I went down to the Eaton's Tea Eaton Company, which is no longer either, and I picked out a bedroom suite, a kitchen suite, and a television suite.
Chesterfield and chair and a
television, and a bed, the three main things for an apartment. And then the guy said, "Okay, we'll have them here when you get back. They'll be in your apartment all set up." We got back from Yorkton after our wedding, and got back to the apartment. There wasn't a stick of anything in there. It was stone empty. So we slept on the floor that night. Yeah, I went down to eat the next day. And I said, "Hey, you promised me you'd have that furniture in the apartment." He said, "Well, you got to put down a deposit. You've only been in the job for a month." I said, "I told you that when I bought the furniture." And you said it was okay, but I said, "Then we'll have it down next day." They had it down. They brought the furniture next day, and we set us up.
Yeah.
But her sister came along with us. Her Uncle Joe and Aunt Vi, we never had a car. No. Her Uncle Joe and Aunt Vi had a car, and they pulled our little trailer in with a cedar chest on the back, and a cedar chest he got from an old boyfriend, which we no longer have, him or the cedar chest. But and that's all we had that night was that cedar chest. I think we slept on the floor with some blankets we had.
We did, yes. I don't even know if
we didn't live long. We didn't live long in that apartment. Maybe a year.
9 months.
9 months. Yeah. I moved to a newer apartment, other side of town.
Yeah.
It was
Freeway.
Freeway apartments. Yeah.
And then from there we moved to Kent Road.
We bought a little house then.
Yeah. Slab home.
Yeah, we were getting lush then, so we're flush.
We paid $10,000 for it.
Yeah.
And then when we decided to go back to Yorkton in '66, we sold it for same price.
Yeah, there was no big investment in that. My dad had a stroke. He was only 55 at the time.
Yeah.
He had quite a severe stroke, so this is not good. We're living hundreds of miles away from our families.
Yeah, I never did like Winnipeg. I mean, I was always a little town girl, and to go to the big city was just really not my best time, for sure.
So while we were home in Yorkton, where my dad had the stroke, I mentioned I saw an ad for a town policeman up in Sturgis, Saskatchewan, a town of about 1,250 people just north of Yorkton, about 60 miles, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so I went up there and I applied for a job with the town council there, and they were so happy. Here I'm coming from Winnipeg. I was a detective already, active detective, and I come there applying for a town policeman's job, and so I met with the town council, and they're interviewing me, and I'm interviewing them as well. So I said, "What happened to your last policeman?" So the little guy, we become friends forever. His name is Mike Liss. He says he was shot. So. So anyway, I got the job, and we moved from Winnipeg into Sturgis. Only lived there for about from February till September, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough for me to do as a town policeman there. I was helping the guy read water meters and stuff like that, and I'd go to the nuisance ground and shoot rats just for something to do.
Mike Liss,
Yeah.
And his name,
When he,
well, actually,
when Grandpa
your
went,
lifelong friend.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
When
was
Grandpa,
was the cop in Sturgis before you?
no.
no, he was a town council.
Oh, he was.
He was on
Yeah.
town council, and that's when I asked him. I said, "What happened to your?" He was on town council, and it was Don Phelan, a friend of his and stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I asked him, "What happened to your last town policeman?" He said, "Oh, he was shot. He's a real
kidding.
comedian
Yeah.
guy, like he's just kidding, you know."
Yeah.
So I went home and
he
I
went-
talked to Bub, and I said, "There's a guy there. I think I know him." I said, "His name is Mike Liss." She says, "Oh, that's Mike Liss. He's my cousin."
Well, he's not my cousin.
Well,
but
he's a relative.
I have an uncle who is Mike's cousin.
Yeah, it's a relative
Was.
anyway. So,
Yeah.
so that we've been friends with them and
Since
him and his wife
1966.
since '66. Yeah.
She invited us over for lunch after
Yeah.
the meeting that day because I had to go into, I guess, to the meeting, and she invited us over for lunch.
Yeah.
And we moved back to Yorkton in September.
Yeah, because I say there wasn't much to do in Sturgis. It was
Yeah.
a beautiful little town, and we were so well received there. And
Just not enough to do.
there wasn't enough to do, so all of a sudden my dad said, "There's a trucking business coming up for sale in Yorkton. Are you interested?" So we went to Yorkton, and I met this guy, and we thought we'd buy this trucking business, and that's how we got to back to Yorkton again. Just a little freight line that ran from Yorkton out to little towns called Ryan, Stornoway, McNutt, Calder, and it ran 3 times a week. I would load one day and take out a load next day. And surprisingly, it wasn't big money, but it was enough to keep us going and buy a house and everything. And it was, a matter of fact, I started with a semi. It was an old International tractor and a 30-foot trailer. I learned to back up semis and drive them in that short period of time. And I can remember I used to walk down in the morning from our house on Laurier to where I stored the trailer inside from the fellow I bought it from, because I would load one day and it would have produce and everything in there. Matter of fact, I'd have produce and I'd have frozen stuff in the same trailer, trying to keep them hot and keep them cold at the same time. It's like a thermos bottle, you know. It knows the difference between heat and cold.
I know.
And yeah, I remember walking down 30, 40 below down from the house to get this truck in the morning and get out in the road and service these customers. And after a while, my dad said, "Why don't you?" He worked for a company called Ball Courage. He was foreman there, and he was looking after the furniture part of it. He said, "Why don't you get into the furniture business? It's a lucrative business." So I had a second old truck there, and I thought, well, I'll do that. I think he gave me some furniture pads and gave me a clue on the first move job. I'd done that, and I think I made $200 or $300, which was cash in the pocket, which was great. And I went from Yorkton to Two Hills, Alberta. Mm-hmm. And I got there, this guy's stuff was all soaking wet. It rained on the way. I remember leaving Yorkton that night, and because I loaded on Friday night and I took off right away, going down the 16 highway from Yorkton to Saskatoon. It was just under construction then, and there was holes in the floorboard of the truck I had, and it's stupid. I had a sort of a beige jacket sitting beside me. In the morning, I looked, the jacket was covered with mud that had come through the holes in the floor. Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, it was a treasure.
First, yeah.
Headlights would go like this. Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's what we
struggled, but we got through it.
that's when we started the furniture business. And
Yeah.
later on, I got another truck, and we bought a new truck in 1960. And that's when we started to do real good in the furniture hauling business.
Yeah.
And I built a warehouse and a second warehouse, and We had an Atlas Van Lines franchise and a North American franchise. We were doing most of the work out of the radar base at Yorkton, which was a military base, and they only had to have approval from them to do their moving, but it was real good, and that's where we started to maybe prosper then. Yeah, we lived in a little house in Independent, then we moved to another house after that, and there was a fellow I knew from Sturgis that was renting his house, and that was like she was going to say, it's so cold. We already had our daughter Sandy and
Ward.
Ward when we got there, and then Bub was pregnant with Mark, and we had the house, like I say, rented, and that was so cold that the sheet
Crib
from
sheets.
the crib sheet froze to the wall. So we thought this is not going to work very good. So we went over and bought a little house in Laurier, and that was where we stayed there for a lot of years. Yeah.
My Grandma Jones.
Yeah.
She came from the States, and her husband, which was my grandpa, was Henry Theophilus Jones. H.T. Jones, he always signed. But I didn't really know him, and the only thing that I really remember about him, which is the best, is that he had a stroke when he was early 50s, and Grandma Jones lived across from the golf course in Yorkton in a little old house, and when you came in, the Chesterfield was right there, and Grandpa used to he'd lay on that Chesterfield, and every time we would go by, he would hit us with his cane. And that's the only
So you know
thing.
what to look forward to.
Yeah, that's the only thing I really remember about Grandpa. And Grandma, she didn't have a lot. She had 9 kids, and which through her life was not the best. She did not have a good life. But you always got either a piece of bread and jam when you went there, or cornmeal, or another kind of cake that she baked. And that was pretty well it.
She lived a pretty long life.
And yes, she did. For all of her trials and tribulations, she was 86, I think, when she passed away in BC. Mm-hmm. She went to live with her daughter, who
had 9 children.
9 children.
It runs in the family, I think.
Yeah, it was, And they went out to Vernon, and then Grandma couldn't look after herself anymore, so Aunt Shirley said to come out there, so she went out there. But she was 87 when she passed away, so that was pretty good life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it wasn't easy for her, for sure. But then Aunt Shirley actually lived right next door before they moved to Vernon, and she kind of looked after her then. But I don't know what else to...
And my grandparents, my grandfather was Frederick Schneider, a real good German name, and my grandmother was Margaret Schneider. And I remember them, they lived in the front room of our house, on the old Cowboy House, we called it, on James Avenue. And he had a toolbox in the front porch. He was a carpenter. Schneider, I guess, is a carpenter anyway, in German. And if you went near that toolbox, I think he'd have probably clobbered you, because that was out of bounds to touch his toolbox. And my grandmother, she laid in bed, is all I remember her. She had diabetes real bad, and she had lost one leg, and she was very frail as far as I can remember her. So at Christmas time, my parents would hide our Christmas gifts under her bed. But we got wise to that pretty quick. And she passed away quite young, I think, probably in her 60s. And my grandfather lived to be in his 70s, but he say he was a big old sturdy German, and he wasn't going anywhere quick. I remember I went to a show one time by myself. It was called The Thing, and it was such a horror show. And I remember walking home from the theater, and I saw him walking down the sidewalk, so I went up and I walked beside him, and he said to me, "What do you want? Walking with me?" Like you never come around with me otherwise. But I felt safe walking with him, because he was my safety net. I was scared, so he was my safety net that night, I guess. Yeah. But they weren't cruel parents, but they were stern, very stern. Yeah, and not the grandmother, she wasn't, but the grandpa was. That was his character, and that's what he had to portray to the rest of his family. Yeah,
and my dad's, like that, Grandma Jones was my mother's mother. And my dad's family, I never met because he came to Canada in 1927 when he was 23 years old. And then he got a job with a farmer. I think the guy's name was Harrison. And I remember, the only thing I really remember is them saying that he worked for $5 a month. But I guess at that time, we survived, you know. But then we moved, and they had a farm that they called 19. I guess that was the area or whatever, because it was always the farm on 19. And then we said, what
Section number or something, yeah.
And when we moved to Crystal Lake after we left Yorkton, our house number was 19. So I thought, what a nice connection kind of thing.
Went to Norway in 1983.
80.
Was it the first? 80 the first time.
Yeah.
Because her dad had never been back to Norway, and your mother had passed away by then.
Yes.
So we thought, we'll take your dad back to Norway. He hadn't been back ever since he'd immigrated when he was 27 years old. He was now
1927.
He was getting a bit older then, and he was having trouble breathing, and his breathing wasn't the best, and so we had to sort of hobble him all the way to Norway, not knowing what his relatives were like over there, whether they were gangsters or something.
Annalisa used to write to Dad.
Yes.
And then Dad would
That's
take it down.
your cousin, yes.
Yes. Dad would take it down to
Thorsrud, yeah.
Carpeting in Yorkton, and he was Norwegian, so he would translate, because my dad had nobody to talk to, so he kind of lost his language.
Didn't use it, so he lost it, yeah.
Yeah. And so he'd take it to Thorsrud's, and they would translate for him. So I mean, they were always in contact until Aunt Borghild died, and then
So we went to Norway, and we get out the airport, and the doorway had to come through before customs. It had some little windows in there, and here's these faces looking through the windows, and they were all clones of her dad, all looking through, and they had to be the most beautiful people you could ever met, I think. Yeah.
Uncle Bjorn and my dad were like twins. Like they looked so much
just like
alike.
they were cloned. Yeah, they were just and nice people. Just they treated us just like royalty.
And the storekeeper that lived. Uncle Arna was the youngest, and he was never married, so he was still in the
family home.
And we went over to the store, and Dad was with, and the guy looked, and everybody, I think, in the town knew that we were coming, and that Dad was coming.
It was Sarpsborg. Sarpsborg, you know.
So they knew right away that you've got to be Bjorn's brother, you know, because they looked so much alike. And we had a beautiful meal, because my cousin Annalisa, who I still keep in touch with, she organized every day we were going to a different relative. So we had met so many, and
the first meal we had was
reindeer
meat, yeah. And I don't know if you ate it or not, because you sure wouldn't eat it now.
Probably not.
Probably not. What was the deal with the plaid pants?
My dad was so embarrassed, because Norway was like Europe. They're always more advanced than what we are.
Fashion-wise and everything, yeah.
And my dad wore plaid pants, because that's what men wore at the time, and he just was so embarrassed that he had plaid pants.
Yeah, I had a mustache then, and I was so out of place with a mustache. Nobody had mustaches over there.
They didn't have facial hair.
No beards and no facial hair at all.
No.
But I remember going to my one time, and I shaved the mustache off. She says, "No, a man with no facial hair might as well be nude." She said it was Aunt Berth. Yeah, she said just like being nude. She said with no facial hair, so grow it back, you know. Yeah. But anyway, we went back to Norway a second.
But Annalisa's husband, Elf.
Yeah.
Annalisa spoke English, but Elf didn't, and we bought some books for translation.
Yeah.
And Harvey and Elf just hit it off. It was unbelievable how they would throw out words and understand each other. Like,
All he knew was Miss Piggy and Roy Rogers
Right,
and
Gene
stuff,
Autry.
Gene Autry stuff from the television or comic
Television,
books.
yeah.
Yeah, but he was an excellent guy.
but
and,
yeah, like you guys just so
Yeah.
hit it off. Like it was really, really good to see. But like I said, Annalisa could speak, but Inger, her younger sister, didn't speak much English. But what brought on the story about It Was You? You
Oh, that
told her-
was
you were something
well. I
about
told her I was in the
Navy.
Navy, and I said I was in
Oh, yeah.
in Norway in so and so years, and she looked at me and says, "It was you."
Yeah.
That was.
She was-
I don't know what she meant by it, but
Yeah. She had mentioned something, didn't she, about meeting some sailors or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So she said, "It was you."
yeah, in her
cute.
broken English, yeah, accusing me, but
But yeah, we had a really
Might have
good
been.
time. It might have been, yeah.
yeah, I had a good trip that time when I went to Norway in the Navy. I went to Helsinki, Finland. I went to Stockholm, Sweden, Copenhagen, Denmark, and Hamburg, Germany. Even when I was there were still a lot of remnants from the Second World War. Were still like the demolished buildings and such. They hadn't all been cleaned up by that time, so there was quite a bit of history still there. And we went to church. The whole ship's company. Ship's company is all the people on the ship. The crew, they call it ship's company, not crew. We had to go to church Sunday morning, and we happened to be in church with the king of Germany at that time. I think, or he wouldn't be a king; he'd be a chancellor, I guess, is what they were called. Yeah, so that was quite an epic thing. Certain things in your history you remember, something like that was quite epic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we went back in '83 because they had what they called a cousin party.
Suskenbarntreff.
Suskenbarntreff.
That's as much Norwegian as I know.
Yeah.
Suskenbarntreff
And
is
so I got my friend Shirley Gavlis. I got her sister Audrey was an artist, and so I got Audrey. I bought some canvas, and Audrey wrote on there Suskenbarntreff and all different things. So when I took it over to Norway, I got everybody to sign it. So someplace in our
it's tucked away somewhere. Yeah.
trunk downstairs.
Well, that time we went, it was just you and I and your sister Louise, and then Sandy come with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
She made both trips.
Yeah.
Sandy first
did.
one was her graduation
From
gift from her grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second one was at our cost.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were
Well,
interesting.
She was a pen pal with Gro Maria.
Yeah, a girl. Yeah,
And
one of your cousin's daughters.
yeah, Inger's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we went over there, it was just it was disappointing because Gro and her just didn't click at
Pen
all.
pals, they were
And they were
great,
pen
but as soon as they
pals
met face to
for
face,
years,
it
yeah.
just
As kids, like
dissolved,
yeah,
sort of, you know.
Yeah, it
I'm going
just-
to take a slurp of coffee here.
it just didn't. I don't know. It didn't work. But now I see Gro is on Instagram, so we
Yeah, how
kinda,
things change, eh?
yeah,
Yeah.
Things change.
yeah. How things
Take us to Winnipeg. And
Okay,
Yeah.
the kids
When the kids were all
and kind of
coming.
what,
Yeah.
what you were up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we got to Winnipeg, and well, we had the San Rita, and then into the freeway apartments.
Freeway apartments.
Then we bought a little house on Kent Road, and it was just a little slab home, but it was really
Something like this with
cute-
no stairs, no nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
really cute little house.
Yeah.
And I just was totally lost in Winnipeg because I was city girl a little town girl, not a city girl. And my boss in Yorkton gave me a letter to take to the Metropolitan store in Winnipeg to like a resume. And I was too chicken to get on the bus. And
To go.
Finally, after about 9 months, I got enough courage, went to the store, and his name was Swan. Mr. Swan was the manager there in Winnipeg. And he said, well, why didn't you come earlier? We could use you. So anyway, I started the job. And
By that time you were pregnant with Sandy.
yeah, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know when I started that I was pregnant with Sandy. Just started, yeah. So I worked there, and he said, you can work the office was upstairs, and they had an elevator. So he said, you can take the elevator.
Freight elevator.
Yeah, the freight elevator up to the office.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I quit work. I think, Sandy was born on the 26th. I had about a week at home, I think,
Yeah.
before. She was due on the 15th, and I think that's when I worked till the 15th. And then she was born on the 26th.
We still didn't have a car at that time.
No, we
No.
didn't. No.
I was riding the bus back and forth to work, and we
And-
rode the bus
yeah.
whatever. If we went to Yorkton, I borrowed my cousin's car. He would loan us his car.
Yeah, yeah.
Mervyn Schneider was our cousin. He would loan us the car, and
Yeah.
we used that. We didn't buy a car for a
How'd
year.
you get to the hospital?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, we
car?
must have.
we had a car then. Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. We bought a
I remember, 57 Chevy,
57
yellow and black.
with a blue steering wheel.
Yeah.
With a blue steering
Yeah.
wheel. Would you believe?
In fact, I went down to the bank in Nova Scotia. I've dealt with them since I was a kid, I think, since I had
The
the
Navy.
fly now, pay later plan. And I went down to the bank, and he says, well, I can't just give you a loan for the car. I think it was $750.
Yeah.
He said, you'll have to bring the car here. So I had to go down to see this shyster of a dealer and get this car and take it down to the bank. He came out and looked at it. Okay, he said, but you notice it's got a blue steering wheel. Why is that? I said, I don't know. It's just, it runs good and it'll do the trick. So, yeah, so we bought that. And that's right.
That's
I remember
right.
going to the hospital that night. We used to play
Yes.
badminton out in the front street, just with badminton and just
Yeah.
not with the net or anything. And
Back and forth.
yeah, and she would play badminton, big belly and everything.
Yeah.
And
But you were cutting the grass.
Yes.
You were cutting the grass.
yeah.
And I got too close, and
That's
you were
when I started the
starting the lawnmower, and you kind of got
Give her
me
the elbow in the side
belly.
of the belly.
So then that night, we Mervyn Dreen invited us over because his cousin lived across the street from us on Kent, and they invited us over for coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and we went over there, and I said, "Oh, I gotta go." So I waited. Well, I phoned Dr.
No, you walked home from there across the street.
Yeah,
Her water had broke.
My water had broke. I didn't want to really say that, but anyway.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. So we
My
slopped
water
home.
broke, so we walked home, and I phoned Dr. Swan, and I said, my water broke. He said, so?
Yeah,
Do you have any contractions? I said, no. He said, well, when you do, come in.
yeah,
So it was about midnight.
yeah. As usual, it's the
Midnight.
middle of the night.
Yeah. And we had to stop for toothpaste.
Yeah, I started the little.
And you went in to get
I went
some
in this little
toothpaste.
store, this
Yeah.
little
Convenience.
smoky type of convenience
Yeah.
store, and I said I need some toothpaste. He said, "What do you think of the?" I forget what it was
Something
about
that
this.
was-
I said, "Listen, just give me the toothpaste. I
gotta
gotta go. We're getting the baby coming here on the way." So, yeah, he wanted to talk news or something,
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I haven't got time for that."
So then
So
I
Sandy,
had some pains, but not a whole lot. And Sandy was born 6:22
yeah,
Sunday
well,
morning.
6
it
hours
was.
after, yeah.
Yeah, so it was quite an easy birth, and I don't remember how long.
From there on, it was work.
Then it
Yeah.
was work.
We didn't have a washer and dryer then.
No.
No, and we washed
So,
diapers.
and
yeah.
we didn't have Pampers or Huggies. No, we didn't have that stuff. So we had a scrub board and a,
The old washboard,
and a bathtub, yes, and that's how we washed her diapers. We had a neighbor, Marianne and Ludwig Bachmann, right next door to us.
Yeah.
And she was pregnant almost, I think Henry was born on the 16th of July. And she loved her bingo. So you said, I don't remember how old Sandy was, but you said, go to bingo with Marianne. So I did. And I came home and there was this little tub full of clean diapers and a little sign that said, angels were here. He had scrubbed all the diapers and had them all washed by the time I got home that night, yeah. But
It was an adventure.
yeah. And then 2 years and 3 months later, Ward was born. And he was 64.
I think by that time we had a washing machine and all
Yeah.
the necessary appliances, yeah.
He was born in 64, and then we moved from Winnipeg
To Sturgis.
to Sturgis in 66, yeah. So that's how we got there. And then they always say when you move, you have to be careful because you're going to get pregnant. And sure enough, we moved to Yorkton. I got pregnant with Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was 4
But
years later.
it's ironic because remember I mentioned before about Mike Liss and his wife that
Oh,
we
yeah.
become friends with? We stayed friends, and in Yorkton after when you got pregnant, she was giving you the gears about being
Well, she
pregnant.
bought me,
and
she bought me
you
a little
ornament.
statue.
Yeah.
And it's this woman with the big belly, and on the bottom it said, "I forgot to take the pill." And she bought me that, and she
Yeah.
was pregnant at that
Just
time.
shortly after she got,
with
yeah,
Colin,
so it
yeah.
was deja vu, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so then after, well, we moved to Sturgis, like you said, it was not easy there because there wasn't a whole lot to do. It was easy for me because raising kids, that was my job, you know, so, but it was Harv that was used to doing a little bit more than going to the dump shooting rats.
But one time we can't find Ward. He's gone. He's 2 years old, disappeared.
Yeah.
And the house we had, there was a lane, and just across the lane was a drop down
Kind of a
to
gully.
a gully and a slough down there. Oh God, where is he? We can't find him. We looked all over, and
Went
all
to
of a
the
sudden he's
neighbors.
over the neighbor's house. She's feeding them cookies over there.
Yeah,
You know,
she
and
said,
so-
I saw him out. I saw him outside, so I invited him in for cookies.
Yeah, and we're
Oh, my
looking, we're
goodness.
tearing our hair out looking
Honest
for
to
him.
God. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Mrs. Johnson, it was. Yeah.
yeah,
And she was giving him cookies and milk. She said, "Oh, he was so cute. I had to just ask him in." She said.
When we got to Sturgis and I was telling policemen there, I had to use my own car. It was a police car, so they equipped it with some lights and a radio. I don't know who the radio was. Probably with there was nobody on the other end, just maybe a false antenna. And I remember that we used to have a speed trap. We set up 2 tapes. Well, actually, the guy from Priestville down the road about 5 miles, he was a town cop there, and we'd set up this speed trap right in the middle of town. You set out 2 tapes, and when they hit the first tape, the needle would fall. When they hit the second tape, it would stop, and that would give you the speed. Well, I remember one of the first nights I was out there, and this guy went across there pretty fast. I never could catch him. So they told me you got
What was the old car
to
you
get a
had?
different car. We had a real nice '58 Pontiac then,
Pontiac.
nice looking car, but
Oh, it was.
wasn't very fast. So they told me I had to get a better car. So yeah, it was fun, I guess, in the end.
Yeah,
Nice to talk about it now, but it was
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, did you have a gun there
no.
in Sturgis? The town cop didn't have a
No.
gun.
No.
In fact, when I was in Winnipeg, I joined there. The first 6 months, you don't have a gun, but yet you walk around with an empty holster,
With a holster,
which I never did agree with. You know, as to walk with an empty holster, and somebody was going to cross you, they would think you have a gun, like, you know. So I didn't like that idea, and I vented my opinion quite often, but never didn't get anywhere anyway. I only pulled the gun out once, I think, down in North Main, and there was a car. I forget what it was. They were looking for a car, and the car come around the corner just as I was at the corner of the street, and I stepped out in front and I told him to stop, and he come towards me, so I just pulled the gun. They went like this, and he stopped right there, and he backed up and never did catch him because I couldn't run as fast as they could back up. Yeah, it was a comedy of errors. All they ever used it for was breaking walnuts and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an old Webley 38 Webley, and when you fired it down the range, the sparks would fly out the side. So it was dangerous to even shoot, because you'd lose an eye. Oh, that was ridiculous. Well, see, when I walked the beat, you have to check properties, what you've done. And they give you a certain amount of blocks to walk, and that was your beat. And you had to walk that continuous and check property, front doors and back doors and the lanes. And I come around the corner one night, and this guy ran away from the back of this building. So I humping after him with my big fur coat, a buffalo coat on there, and he jumps over the ditch, and I'm going to run through the ditch, and there was about 2 feet of snow in the ditch, and I would flatten my face. He got away too. Never did catch him. So, you don't tell anybody these things when you go back. I chased another guy. I was walking the beat down in North Main and running after him in the lane. I said, "Stop or I'll shoot you." He said, "F you," and away he went. Never saw him again. He just ran away on me. Yeah. When I had a partner when I was in plain clothes, George Schultz and I, we were good friends, and we become partners on detectives. And went to a call one night, a man with a knife. So we got up in this tenement building, and And the guy opens the door, and he's got a great big knife the size of, I'm sure it was like a samurai sword.
It was
or
probably a little
samurai sword. No, it was a big knife. And holy crap, it scared, my heart sure jumped out of my chest. And then he slammed the door shut, and I said, George, go phone. We didn't have radios like they have now. You have to go somewhere. And so he went down to another apartment, and he phoned the detective and said, what should we do? The guy said there, he said, shoot him. So when George, just as he was there, the guy opens the door, and I see the knife is stuck in the table behind him, the wooden table. So I thought, holy crap! So I grabbed him right away, and I'm wrestling with him in the hallway, and George thinks he's stabbing me, so he runs down, he jumps on both of us, and we fall in the hallway and wrestling around there. Finally got him under control and put some cuffs on him and took him in. But God, I could have killed the guy when I saw that knife. George. Yeah, we never did shoot him.
No.
We never had the heart to shoot him. I've got a couple of scars before I lost his leg. I've got a scar here, and I also have one on my ankle. I got that from track and field with the spikes. And this one here was from sawing wood. And the kids would always say, what are the scars from? And I'd say, well, I got shot. They went in here and come out my ankle. They never did believe me, I don't think, but it was still a good story.
Well, they did, I think
they believed me for a while, but they got wise to that.
Yeah.
And well, I was in Winnipeg, on the police force again. I managed, after taking, remember I've said about taking a shorthand and typing course to become a courthouse stenographer. I was a good typist because I typed in the Navy as well with the communications. I was always working inside in the police force. So I was working the desk one night, and this taxi pulls up, and he's like, got a drunk lady out in the car, and she won't get out. So me and the other guy go, pardon me, and I drag her out of the car. Her name is Joyce Tate, as a matter of fact. We drag her in. She's just loaded, so we dragged her down the hallway, and she turns around. She clamps onto my thigh here, and she bites me. Oh God, she was bite. She wasn't. It was like a shark. So I give her a punch in the side of the head. I'm sure if it was on video now, they'd accuse me of assaulting her. And so finally we got her in the cell and locked her up, and I told the on-duty sergeant, I said, she bit me. Well, you got to go to the hospital. So I go to the hospital, he says, you have to have a tetanus shot because, it's a human bite is bad. So he says, pull down your drawers. I said, can I pull my pant leg up? He said, no, you got to pull them down. Pull them down. So I got the tetanus shot and went back to work. And she got 6 months in jail for assaulting a police officer for that episode, yeah. Well, there was quite a few things that happened while I was there.
Well, you have that picture that was in the Winnipeg Free Press of
standing on
that kid.
Oh yeah. That's when just before I left.
Quite a celebrity.
Just before I left, I was called into the office. I was in plain clothes, and I had to go and draw a uniform and a buffalo coat and everything. And I'd done a commercial for T. Eaton Company. I was down on my knee, and a young guy was standing in front of me with a pair of skates. Yeah. It was a safety.
Didn't it say be alert to safety?
Be alert to safety, and a little young guy with his skates over his shoulder, and me in the buffalo coat.
I wish we would have got his name. It'd be interesting to see if we could ever find him. Yeah.
And also.
And that was in '66, wasn't it? February.
Just before we left. Yeah. But I also went to church with the Prime Minister. There was two of us had to bodyguard him, and it was.
Prime Minister or Governor General?
Governor General, okay, you're right, Bob. Yeah. I was trying to embellish it a bit, but you wouldn't go for it.
Well, he's probably less available than the Prime Minister would be.
But it was Vincent Massey, that's right,
The only thing that I remember as a child, like not really a child, but...
youth.
Yeah, youth. Was my Uncle George was a salesman for Scott Fruit, Scott National, I think it was called. And he would take my mom, my sister Shirley, and me, and we would go with him to Jedburgh Theatre. And I don't remember what town it was, but there used to be some really, really hills and everything. And I always, that's what stands out in my mind, because we didn't have a car at all. My dad never, ever drove. And so Uncle George used to come and take us places. And I remember going in these hills and everything and how much fun we used to have. And now when I think about it, those hills were pretty, high and down. And Uncle George used to drive pretty fast.
Sensation of going over the hill, yeah.
But really, what I really liked, but then that's after we were married and had grandchildren, was taking them to Disneyland. We took, we had
Four of them, yeah.
4 out of 5, because Brittany was too young yet. So we took the 4 kids and went to Disneyland, and we had a ball. And every night, Grandpa,
Well, the first night in the
just a
hotel,
second,
yeah.
Some of the grandkids, like the grandson-in-law, like Nolan, kind of calls Grandpa cheapy kind of thing.
Frugal.
So, frugal. No, frugal is not the word that he used. He said cheap.
Did he?
Yeah. Anyway,
I'll remember him on the list.
we used to get home back to the hotel at night, and we ordered pizza one night. And with that pizza came a coupon for more pizza the next night.
And pizza and
You're
coca.
nuts. How are you going to deal with 4 kids? But we were used to having them. When we moved to the lake, we used to have, well, I remember after Zachary was born, Ward didn't have a real full-time job, but your mom worked at the post office. So I remember you were 6 months, and I said to Annie, as soon as Zachary gets off the boob, we're taking him. We're taking him. So here we are. We've got him in the vehicle, and Ward's standing on the grass in front of King, the house on King.
King Crescent, yeah.
And there's a little bit of a tear coming, but then that's the Stevners. And we took Zachary home with us. I don't remember how long we had him, but I know the first night that we got home, we had a rocker type chair in the
TV
Sandy's
room, yeah.
TV room. And I sat in there and I held Zachary all night long. I did not go to bed that night. I was so into being a grandma. And so then once we moved to the lake, we used to get the kids out there in the summertime, and they'd take swimming lessons, and yeah, we had a absolute great time. And like that saying says, if I knew grandparenting was so much fun, I'd have done it first.
Yeah, it was, exactly.
And
Yeah.
pulling away from our place on King was, it was a regular cab truck.
It was a pickup, yeah, it was a 86 Ford
Yes.
150
The 3 of you
bench seat,
in the front seat.
because Grandma was long
Grandma
too.
was with us too.
There's 3 of you, and you were just holding me.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, there was no car seats then.
No car
It's like-
seats.
We never
No.
had car seats anytime.
Yeah.
No.
We have a
Because-
picture of that as they're pulling away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Sandy, we used to travel with her, we had a laundry basket in the back, and she slept in the laundry basket.
As a
yeah.
baby, yeah. And then otherwise she
need a-
stood beside you.
Yeah,
As you drove, she would stand beside you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you don't do that now.
Safety first. We're preaching safety first. And
Yeah, Sandy worked at McDonald's, and she wasn't even 16 at the time, but we knew the manager of McDonald's because he used to come to all the hockey games too. And so he hired Sandy, and she opened up the store, like opened up McDonald's every morning. They'd send a cab for her, and she worked there. So on her 16th birthday, we asked Bill if we could bring a cake to McDonald's and surprise Sandy because she was working. So we get this birthday cake and we go to McDonald's, and she was so embarrassed. She didn't work out in the front. She liked the cooking in the back. And so we called her out there, and her boyfriend at the time, Glenn, who we invited him to, and here we're all singing happy birthday to her. She was so embarrassed. I don't think she really liked me at that time, but
she smelled of hamburgers.
she was so greasy from hamburgers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of good times, and then with Mark, we even Mark and Ward. Sandy played basketball, right? She wasn't into a whole lot of sports, but she did like her hockey, and she did play hockey, girls hockey. She even wrote a article in the paper why they couldn't have a women's league of hockey, because she really enjoyed it. And so then the boys, they got into volleyball, and I think our weekends were gone.
For at least 10 years.
Yeah. We traveled, we went every place they did, and there was times when it conflicted with Mark and Ward, so I went with Mark out to Vancouver one time for the games, and you went to, I think, Regina with Ward.
for the junior nationals or something. Yeah,
they went pretty far in volleyball.
Ward went to the U of M
Yeah.
on the Bison team, and Mark went to U of S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huskies, yeah. And then, when we took Ward to Winnipeg, that was not a good trip home, for sure not. He was only 17 years old and first year university, and I think I cried all the way home.
If I can just add one thing, when Ward was in Winnipeg, he was billeted out to the family there, and we bought him a television. Svensson was a family. We bought him a television, a little color television. It was in a box, and we took it to him. And every summer he'd come home for holidays, bring his TV home in his box, and keep the box and take a television back in the fall. So when he finished the U of M, he'd come home and he took the television in his room and he put the box out by the garbage. I said, "Why is the box out there?" He said, "Well, I'm home now for good." I said, "No, you're not. This is not your last stop. You take that box with you when you go." Yeah.
But he stayed home for
Oh yeah,
2 years.
he worked for us for a lot of years. Then he took over the company after when he sold it. Yeah.
We never did make him leave earlier until he met Annie.
Yeah.
And that was a lucky day
Mark
for us.
too, I guess. When we were up at McBride Lake, we never mentioned that we had a cottage up there, and Mark was just a little squirt.
Yes.
2 or 3 years old, 4 maybe 5. I forget how old he was. But we had
born
friends.
in 68 and we built in 71.
Yeah, so he wasn't very old.
No.
And we had neighbors up there, friends of ours too. Eddie Pahal was a real good friend. We used to moose hunt together and everything. And that's why we built up in the north there. And Mark would go over and help Eddie all day long. He'd shovel sand and pound nails. He wouldn't help me one bit, but he'd go over and help Eddie all the time.
Because Eddie would take a log and he'd give Mark a hammer and nails.
And he'd pound nails in it.
I don't know how many nails went in that log, but quite a few, yeah. Those were good years. We would go, there was the 3 kids, 3 kids, a cat, Harv and I, and we had, I don't know how many glass gallon jugs of water, because we had no well or anything at the lake and no power. And all of this was in a half-ton, and it wasn't an extended cab.
No, it was 67 Chevy half-ton,
all in this half-ton. And we would go almost every weekend, and they didn't plow the roads to the cabins, so we would park on the hill, and then we would have a toboggan, and we would take everything on the toboggan into the cabin. It was ice cold. Harv would start the fireplace. We'd go and we'd take all the sheets of the bed and open them up so that the beds would get warm.
Yeah, that would be Friday night.
Yeah. And then Sunday,
go home. The place is just getting warm and it was time to go home,
Yeah. And some days in the summer, we would stay till morning, and we'd get the kids up early in the morning, and then we'd drive home and just drop them off at school.
Off at their respective schools,
But we had some good years over there. Lots of good fishing.
It was,
Pickerel, But
I remember Ward one time, if I can just add to his history, we had a canoe. I had about an 18-foot canoe, and it had a 3-horsepower gas motor on the back. Ward had to try everything. So he gets in the canoe, he starts the motor, and he spins around. Down goes him and the canoe and the motor and everything. So I think I reached down the pier and I pulled him up, and
he was just young.
he had to try everything. He sunk the whole thing.
We built the house in 76.
We still had the bus. We still had the cabin. We still had the cabin too.
When Ward turned 16, because I remember him complaining, "Sure, just because I'm getting a license, you're going to sell the bus."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I bought an old school bus from the local school board there, and it was their spare. And I guess apparently it wasn't supposed to be sold, but the guy sold it to me. Yeah. I don't know how much time I spent. I stripped out the whole inside, lined it all with carpet, and put in. Went down to SGI and bought bucket seats for Bob and I in the front. Made bunk beds in the back for the kids.
We worked every night.
Had it all wired with 12-volt batteries and water system. Yeah, it was pretty good. It still sits now
in Foam Lake.
By Foam Lake somewhere, on the farm. Yeah. It's lost all its paint and everything, but I think Ward stopped one time and checked with the guy and said, "My dad remodeled this bus. Yeah, we did good trips in that. We go up to
We sure did.
Squaw Rapids. It's not called Squaw Rapids anymore. It's called
Some,
E.B. Campbell Dam, I
Dam,
think now,
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to go fishing there for weekends. It was great fishing, and we had more time in that bus, and the kids
Yeah.
slept in those bunk beds. It was great. Yeah.
That's not the only thing you built. You built the sled to take behind the skidoo.
I bet
yeah,
that was an
right.
adventure too. Well, I got about a 10-foot toboggan, I guess, and I
Yeah.
built a box on the back, and I divided it in 3 sections, one for
the
each
three
of them,
kids, yeah.
and then I put a little seat in each one, and they went out and they pulled it behind we had a
Snow jet.
71 snow jet, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I took the kids out, and the first time I hit a snowbank and the snow jet stopped, they all broke the front of their seats off. So that was the end of that toboggan. It didn't really work that good.
No, no.
Yeah.
Because they all.
They broke
Yeah,
they broke
yeah,
the backs
all
off.
the
It
seats
stopped
were
so quick, and but we had a lot of fun with that lake. And
And you gave Dad a skidoo.
yes, oh, that was.
What happened? That
Well, we
lasted-
bought-
that lasted all of a day.
I bought
Yeah.
a skidoo, actually,
It was a skidoo,
little
yes.
skidoo, a one-lunger, and I had a warehouse then. I just rented a warehouse, and we took it in there and we fixed it all up and remodeled the motor and repainted everything, got it all fixed up nice. We gave it to him for his birthday
Yep.
in October, and then we went up to the lake when the snow come, and I'd borrowed brother-in-law's snowmobile trailer. We had our snow jet on there, plus Ward's revitalized skidoo, and just before we hit Sturgis, I felt something pulling on the car, and here the hitch had come apart. It was a swivel hitch that went down so you could unload them at ground level. And it went this about 3 times, and off flew the 2 snow machines. The snow jet went up and landed nicely in the ditch, and Ward's skidoo rolled a couple of times.
Yeah.
He could have, I'm sure he cried then,
sure, yeah.
but he took it to the lake and a few scratches and dents and stuff, and away it went. And he enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, he had his own snow machine then. Yeah.
And then what else?
Then our snow jet, he happened to hit a post, but he'd never admit it.
Never.
He
And
come
I-
back. He
and
come
we
back.
know- we know it was him because Sandy was with him, and she squawked, and then we could see what he hit because she
They were
told us
barrier
it was
poles.
The barrier post.
Yeah.
You could see the blue paint on the barrier post, so you knew that he ran into the post.
He was like Thatcher, deny, deny, deny. It was all,
yeah. But
And after that, we moved back in the city again. We moved to Crystal Lake, and I got involved more in Yorkton, I guess. We got involved with the Terriers
yes,
about 1970. I think they were incorporated in 71 or 72, I think. And the 3rd year of their being in the SJHL, I got involved with the executive. They told me, why don't you come and join the executive? You can be finance minister. There isn't much finance person. There isn't much to do. You just collect money. Oh, sure there isn't. Wound up doing bingos and everything, trying to make enough money to keep the club going. So we would have bingos at night. We'd be home counting money and trying to. It was a television bingo.
yeah.
And we sold bingo all over. We make something like
We used our warehouse. You had just built our
Yeah,
warehouse.
yeah.
And it was still empty at the back. So
Yeah.
that's where we counted
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
and
And we billeted,
We billeted.
3 boys.
yeah.
And one, Alan Brand, who lives in Cold Lake, Alberta
Yeah.
now. We still get a newsletter at Christmas
Every
time.
year, him and his
yeah,
family.
And I send one back, yeah. So we still keep in touch with
And Ron
with
Mazzella, who was the minister's government minister, I forget what he was, minister of
Yeah,
highways or something. His son billeted him,
yeah.
and also a young guy from Maple Creek.
Maple Creek. We called him Scooter because
Yeah.
he was a little guy and really fast.
Yeah,
But with Ronnie Mazzella, when he lives in Carlisle, and when Sandy and Tony left Saskatoon and went back to the farm for a year or whatever it was, she said that Ronnie Mazzella is.
he was the town administrator.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I went there and surprised him, and I was going to shake his hand, and he said, "I don't think so." He said, "I want a hug." And then he said, he said, "My wife and I," he said, we're just talking about you guys the other day. He said, we're raising 2 children. He said, "You had 3 and you had 3 of us." He said, 3 hockey players. He said, "How the hell did you do it?"
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah. And then when Ward played volleyball there in Winnipeg, they were going to Edmonton, and they used to stop at our place all the time, and I always fed them.
They stop on the
And
way
then-
through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
way through.
with their own van.
Yes, and then this one time, they were coming back.
Well, they got they're going to Red Deer.
Yes.
They're going to play in Red Deer, and their van broke down.
Yeah.
So they rode in the back of a transport oil tanker truck all the way into Red Deer, and they won the match that night. Then they went from there to Edmonton. Somehow they got to Edmonton by bus, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
And their van was finished, so they came home on the midnight bus from Edmonton.
And the bus depot wasn't open at the time.
No,
So we made a turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy, cabbage rolls, pierogies, and a vegetable. And we bought foil plates, and we had all these dinners hot just to take to the bus depot.
went down with the half ton, opened the back and the end gate, and
Yeah.
all these meals were on there.
So the kids are all coming out and getting. Then there was other passengers on the bus too, and so they came and they said, "Are these meals for sale?" And we said, "No, it's just for the team." Yeah, but but we got the nicest letter from the coach and all the kids, and I think it's still someplace in the cedar chest.
They stayed at our house on Clarewood Crescent, and we had a pool table downstairs.
Yeah.
I think one slept on top of the table,
Yes,
one
and
slept
one
below the
underneath.
table, and Garth Pischke was the coach, and he used our main bath because he slept in the front room on the couch. And we didn't have a shower. We had a shower in there, but it was just this high because Mom just washed her hair in there.
Yeah.
So he came up and he said, "How the heck do you want shower under that thing?" It says so low. The shower's downstairs. There is no shower. We had some good experiences with them kids.
Yeah. No, we're
We went to
Nova
Cape
Scotia.
Breton, Cape Breton,
Cape
Cape Breton, to the
We went
Winter Games.
yes. And I made scarves for all of the parents that were going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even going back to the terriers, we made toques for all the terriers, my sister and I, and we made banners that had Yorkton Terriers and their name and number.
Their number, yeah.
Yeah.
They were all on a dowel, and they could hang them up
they
like
could
that.
hang them. And we connected after the Humboldt accident. Wendell Jellison was a kid that was 16 years old that played for the Terriers.
Yeah.
And he was a little guy. He was a fast little guy. But he was really loved his hair.
Long blonde hair.
Long blonde hair.
Something like yours, Nate.
And he'd be skating by, and he could see himself in the glass all the time, you know,
watching
and
his hair
everybody
flow.
used to make fun. But
Well, after the
Then
Humboldt, he
he
texted me and he
connected
says,
to her.
because we had an accident with our bus coming from Humboldt.
Yeah.
We had a Terrier bus then too, and we hit the ditch by Engelfeld, little town there. Had some nasty little bruises and bumps, but nobody got hurt real bad.
Yeah.
And so I remember the accident we had with the bus, and so we sort of reconnected after all these years of not knowing where he was or who he was, and he lives in Unity now. He's a foreman at the Salt or a plant manager or something there.
And he said, and I still have the banner, he said. It probably isn't in the best shape that I could have kept it, he said, but it hangs in my garage. He said, I still have
We
it.
give them all a banner at the end of the season when they graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty impressed.
Yeah, and then we used to this knitting thing. Just I don't know. We went to Zachary's games, and we had little green and white Saskatchewan toques when we went
Halifax,
to
yeah.
Halifax. Yeah, like we just traveled.
And then you guys drove truck for how many years?
Well, we sold our business
Man, we did a lot, didn't we?
Well, yeah, we're skipping over a lot of this.
Yeah.
Well, and
Going back and forth
before that,
year.
before that, I got involved. Well, actually, we done the Winter Games in Yorkton. We hosted the Winter Games,
That was in
and I wound
86.
up director of sports, all 17 sports. I looked after all of them. And I remember your dad Ward was helping me. Your dad Ward was helping me, and I said they're putting in some things down at the high school, Dr. Brass Auditorium for gymnastics. I said, "You want to go down there and check how he's making out?" So he come back and I said, "How they doing?" He says, "Good. There's just an old guy working there." I said, "He's not an old guy. I went to school with him." You know. He's my age.
Yeah.
That's yeah, but he looks a lot older than you. So I wound up with the director of sports, and our games went good. The first morning of the sports, it was -30. Somebody broke into the office and stole our computer. Talked about starting off on a bad foot, but we got them all underway. We had good games, and after that, I got nominated to go to work for SAS Sport after doing the games, and I spent 3 years with SAS Sport.
But you did get Sportsman of the Year too.
I did,
We
yes.
have that. We
Yeah.
have that clip from the Yorkton Enterprise.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Pretty
Yeah,
involved.
then I got and yeah, I was SAS Sport and spent 3 years back and forth to Regina for meetings and flying out to Vancouver and Toronto and stuff, doing meetings
While
with
I
SAS
sat
Sport.
at home and raised the kids.
Yeah. There was no more kids anymore there.
Well, I had to get that in
Yeah,
there
I know you did. Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, you went along a lot of trips with
Oh,
me.
I know I did, yes.
But I guess probably the best time we have is when the boys played volleyball, and we were traveling so much and flying around, and like I say, we'd be in different places in Canada at different times. And in fact, Mark was over in Holland at Christmas time when he was with the Canadian national team, and I remember him. We were sad he wasn't home with the rest of us,
that was
but
the first year
he
that-
phoned that time from Holland. Yeah, we sold our moving business in 1988.
88, yeah.
And then we thought we were building the place out at Crystal Lake then, so we started working out there for 2 years, and all of a sudden that was done. And now what are we doing? While I was at SAS Sport, I met another lady that was on the board with me, and she says, well, if you want a second career, why don't you go driving transport? You're involved with trucks anyway. She said, my husband drives for a company out of Saskatoon, RSB Logistics, so I went down there, and they said, any minute, do you want to start? Go ahead. So we we went shopping for a
Peterbilt.
Peter. I said, you find a truck that you're comfortable in, and we'll get that. So he went with me. We went shopping. We found this nice big Peterbilt, and we leased on with them for 4 years. We leased the truck. This will be a 4-year plan. We got something to do for 4 years, and we traveled all over the States. I'm sure we covered every highway there was. That 4-year plan turned out to be 20 years. We just quit in 2012. 2011, actually, we quit before, And we went everywhere. We hauled a lot of uranium is what we hauled out of Key Lake, and we'd come down to Saskatoon, and we'd haul it all the way down to Gore, Oklahoma, and to Blind River.
Blind River, which was...
Yeah. Well, we had some real special trips. One time we had to haul a load from Edmonton. Again, I was getting all these special trips because I had Bub with me.
You're a special person.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it wasn't special. But we had to go to the Edmonton Hospital and be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, back up to the loading dock, and I had an empty trailer. I didn't know why or anything. So all of a sudden they came out with this little pallet full, probably about 4x4 pallet, and they put it on the truck. I had to build a wall with straps and load locks in the middle, and they put this pallet in there, and it was going to a place in Ontario where there was a reactor that they have. I can't think of the place now. Anyway,
It starts with a P.
yeah, I forget anyway.
Yeah.
And that's all I have is this one little pallet on there. I said, okay, load it up. Here's your papers. Where you go. There was no custom papers because it was just going in Ontario. And meet these two guys. They'll be following you all the way. I said, pardon? He said, yeah, they'll be following you. It was like a thing out of a James Bond movie. We would go and they would follow us right behind us, about 2 miles behind us. What I was carrying was the reactor or the uranium heads for MRI machines, the expired ones, but they were still so active, and they were making sure I wasn't dropping anything off anywhere else. So they would follow us. They'd say, "Okay, we're stopping here for the night." We would stay in the truck, and they would go to the hotel. I said, "We'll meet you in the morning." We would go again all the way from here to that place in Ottawa. By Ottawa, it was close by there. Yeah, it was quite a good trip. And then one time we had to pick up
At the airport.
at Halifax. We had to take a container to Halifax and pick up another load. Again, it was uranium. It was refined uranium, though. It was a sealed container. And I got to the border to cross into New York, going through Quebec and then going to New York to meet another driver there. He couldn't cross the border, so I was able to cross and take it to him. And I had to notify the Border Patrol 24 hours ahead. And I got there. He said, "Okay, we'll notify the customs," and they shut down the border till we were across the border. They shut the whole thing down. So And I said, why are you doing this? He said, well, we know you're the only one carrying uranium. There isn't somebody else crossing at the same time, because they have detectors in these border crossings. Because I came into North Dakota, or to Portal one time, and I walked in to do my custom papers, and this machine is binging away in the corners. Oh, I said, that's irritating. He said, you're not supposed to hear that. He said, it detects that you have radar about 300 yards before you got here. He said, it picked it up. He said, we forgot to turn it off. So I know they know right away when you're coming with anything that's...
And it was kitty litter that we had on, I think, at that
That
time.
was a different time. We went down through, down here.
But kitty litter
We took it down through Sweetgrass. And the guy came out with a Geiger counter going around the trailer. I said, what's up? I said, this is cat litter from Lethbridge. He says, it's radioactive. I wouldn't be hauling that stuff if I was you. I said, pardon? Everybody has it in their house. Their cats are scratching around it. He said, it's low level, but it's there, he said, and you have to have this certain paper when you come across it. I said, okay. I didn't know what that before. But he said, anything comes out of the ground, I guess, is going to have radioactive activity in it, so, yeah.
So for a 4-year stint, we spent
Turned to be 20
years.
20 years, yeah.
Somebody said, how could you be that close to live together for 24 hours a day, all that time? I said, well, you do have to get along.
And you're living in a place the size of a good-sized toilet.
Yeah.
Bathroom, right?
Really, yeah.
But
we had,
you persevered pretty good. I
Yeah.
give you credit. She would knit and do crossword puzzles and stuff, and had television in there.
and we had a microwave, and we had a little oven, 12
Yeah.
volt, that we could warm up soup and whatever, make lunches in there, and yeah.
One time I took Zachary along on his maiden voyage. He couldn't go till he was 10 years old. So his dad...
Sorry, can I just stop for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's probably on there. Okay, good, okay.
They couldn't take any young passenger until they were 10 years old. And I got a letter from his dad saying that I was authorized to have him with me. So we get to the border again. It's at Northgate, and or Portal, I guess it was. And the custom guy pulled up the window, and I give him my papers. And he says, who are you? I said, I've got a letter here. I don't want to see a letter. I want to talk to him. He said, do you know who this guy is that you're with? He said, yeah, it's my grandpa. I said, okay. Never looked at the letter, I don't think. Wasn't concerned about that. So we were going to New York City. No, we were going to New York that time, and we were going along, and I said, there's the
Eiffel Tower.
the Empire State Building. I pointed out to him. So later on in the years, we're talking about Zachary going on this trip. And I said, we saw the Eiffel Tower. He says, we did. You remember that?
We made it all the way down to, we went down to Tennessee. It was,
We picked up in Kentucky, I think it was, a load for Medicine Hat, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it was a good trip.
Yeah, I went on two trips.
He didn't see much because he stayed in the bunk, and I would just pass him a foot-long
Food,
sub.
sub.
He'd have a foot-long sub, and he'd watch videos back there. Yeah. It was a good trip.
Yeah, we had some good
Made a lot of miles. Probably made 1.5 million miles in those years.
I think we did hit every state except Alaska.
Yeah, exactly. No, Hawaii. But there wasn't much chance of getting there.
No,
Yeah.
couldn't drive there.
No, but it was a good 20 years. Actually, it was interesting. I never knew where places were in the States until we started doing this. And I think for both of us, I remember going to, shortly after the Oklahoma bombing that time, we unhooked the trailer at a truck stop, and we boogied into the middle of the town of Oklahoma where this building was. And I said to the guy, can we get a little bit closer? He said, yeah. He said, go park over there. He said,
Yeah, he was so...
yeah, and that was where I
accommodating.
don't know if you know about the Oklahoma bombing, but that's the time that
the guy got...
McVeigh, he bombed
McVeigh,
with a U-Haul truck, and he bombed the building in Oklahoma that time. Yeah, a lot of people killed that time.
It was...
Kids killed,
It was an eerie feeling looking at, like, they had the fence and then all of these different things that they had. People would post on notes and just different, like a hard hat or a baseball mitt
or a doll or something.
It was just that awful feeling, but it was good to see.
Yeah, we done
Really
things
good
like
to
Elvis Presley's home. We went there. Yeah, what was it called?
Nice.
Graceland. Yeah, we
Graceland.
toured there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I remember.
Oh, was gonna say you took us to Mexico.
Took you to Mexico. Yeah,
No.
that's the time we went down to Disneyland. I rented a van and we went to Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting. We get across the border and it's on Sunday. It was a Sunday, as a matter of fact. It wasn't that busy, but we're walking down the street and these guys were all hugging the wall because they were afraid.
Well,
Then we
Tijuana.
Tijuana, yeah.
Tijuana, yeah, that was the best.
So we come back across the border because they weren't interested in staying down there at all. There was too much,
Well,
and we get into
the
it.
Mexicans are so forward,
Yeah.
you know, and
Hey.
the kids were just
Hey,
back
family
off.
man, bring the kids in here. Bring the kids in
But
here.
then Zachary had to go to the bathroom.
Well, we were in the Target store. We
Yeah.
got back on San Diego, I think it was.
Marshalls or something, yeah.
Target.
Was it Target? Yeah.
And he has to go to the bathroom. Zach has to go to the bathroom, so I waiting, he's not coming out, so I'll go have a peek and see what's going. So I walk into the men's washroom, and I see these white runners, I think they were down below, only ones in the bathroom, so it was him, said, "Hey, hombre!" Up went the runners, so I couldn't see them anymore. He said, is that you, Grandpa?
He
I
was a
said,
little
yeah.
weak and mild at that time.
Yeah.
We got a picture on a donkey down there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right, all
a
sitting-
Nikki wouldn't put the
wouldn't-
sombrero on.
No, she wouldn't
She doesn't know who wore this thing. She said, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we went to Legoland and Fantasy or SeaWorld, yeah.
Because Jake saw Harry Potter
In Legoland, yeah.
That was the highlight of that trip.
Yeah.
For him, I think. Yeah,
That was a good trip.
Yeah.
We were gonna drive down. We just bought a new van then.
Yeah.
And I was going to put a video and everything in there, a video system, so we could drive down. I had all the hotels lined up and everything. And
Everybody told us we were crazy.
said, you'll have fun going down, but coming back, it's going to be total hellion.
because
So,
they've seen everything.
so we decided to
all
fly
the excitement would be gone.
and fly back was the easier way to do it. Yeah. But
So then going down, driving to Calgary, Jake was sick.
yeah.
Get on the plane.
Before I got on the plane, Jessica was
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 it
that-
Jessica? Nikki.
one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then coming back, he's doing some schoolwork. And I guess too much.
Well, he's chirping. He was the only. Zach was chirping. He was the only one that didn't get sick.
And then all
But
of a
they
sudden,
served us
he's
some.
up to
They
the-
served us some green
absolutely green.
rolls of some sort. After a while, he was working on his journal.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he sort of got a pale look to him,
Yeah,
and he
so
wasn't.
then so all of them really had
Took a turn. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a turn, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We trucked till 2011 till Bob got a bit of a scare sick that time. So we thought this is no good. We better stay home instead of traveling all over the place. And that was in October in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2012, I wound up having a heart bypass. So it was the end of our trucking career. I couldn't go anymore. So we were living at Crystal Lake yet, and every winter it was
Every winter.
4 feet of snow and
That
everything.
one winter, well, the last winter, yeah.
Yeah.
A good thing our neighbors went south for the winter because we had room to put our snow.
Throw the
There
snow
was
in their
so
yard,
much
yeah,
snow.
yeah.
It's so much snow.
So I said,
So
this
the kids,
is
yeah,
not good. You have to
yeah.
get out of here. And so we had looked at these places here. I'd been sort of scouting them out during the time we were in and out of here. And we decided to come here. We bought this place in 2013, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or we bought it in 13 and moved in 14, yeah. And it's been good for a number of years. And all of a sudden we had a bit of a glitch last... From the heart bypass I had a bit of a fall with, not a fall. I had to get a stent put in my heart a couple of years after, and then a year they put a stent in that worked good for another year or two, and then it got clogged up again, if I can use that term. So I had to go back for, and they said they can't open it anymore. So I wound up going into Calgary, and they said I was due for another open heart surgery to repair what was not working. In the process, I guess when they
Opened you.
opened me up, they
They found that your
my aorta was
aorta.
fused to my chest wall. So from there on, I don't know anything for the next 3 or 4 days. So
Yeah, well, then they had to transfuse you. Well, first of all, they had to find a artery to clamp off, and they went to the lateral, which
my-
you'd already had a bypass
Yeah.
on. anyway, we don't really know. We kind of think an error was made, but at the time the doctor said it was life or limb. And they had phoned us that night, like Sunday, you went in the hospital, had your operation, and you were in there 9 hours. We didn't hear from the doctor till 6:30 that night. And it did not sound very good. Like he did not give us any hope that he would survive it. And so then that night at 12:30, another doctor phoned and said that probably amputation is going to happen in his right leg, right up to the hip, because we can't get no flow.
They'd opened me up down my groin here
Yeah.
to find an alternate spot for the heart lung machine, I think is what they done.
Yes.
In the process of clamping that off, it cut the circulation off to my lower leg, which wasn't good in the first place.
Yeah.
And then,
And so that was Sunday night.
in fact, I had two surgery here and
Yes,
here,
both sides they tried. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then.
And they left you open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then they left his chest open in case there's any problem that they could go back in without cracking it open. And so Monday morning,
It was 3
We were
days,
all at-
3 days like that.
well, yeah, Monday morning we were at the hospital early, and the doctor came and he said, and he was smiling when he saw Sandy and I. So we go into the special room there, and he said, he said, most patients will go downhill overnight, but he said Harvey has not. He's stable and a little bit better. So he was smiling. So he said, I think he's going to be okay. So then for 3 days he laid induced, I guess you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a piece
Sedated,
of
sedated.
plastic over
Yeah.
over my chest,
Like
open like this.
like
yeah.
Saran wrap.
So, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And they kept it open. And then so Wednesday night they closed him up, and then Thursday morning they started weaning you off the sedation. Well, I think that night yet they started a little bit, and then it was miserable. You were really in dire straits because it hurt. I don't know if it was why you were so irritated.
No, well, I had surgery here,
Yeah.
here, here. So
Yeah.
there was enough to
Yeah.
make me irritated, I guess.
Yeah, but
there was
yes.
there was no way to be comfortable at all, and whatever, and the pain was horrendous.
Bedridden for a week
Yeah.
at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and just kind of waking up and kind of confused. I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
sure.
yeah. Not knowing what,
Absolutely.
not knowing what's
And
happened.
he was so swollen. He was so swollen. Like we've got the pictures that you couldn't even see his neck hardly, and his hands were 3 times the size.
Like the Michelin Man almost, yeah.
Yeah.
What was kind of the
We were there and then I was in recovery for about a week or 10 days, and they sent me back to Medicine Hat for rehab.
Yeah.
And after about a week in rehab here, one of the nurses come in and says, something's wrong with that foot, it's turning black.
Well, and the other nurses saw it too.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
They couldn't find a pulse, but they just sort of ignored it for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
This one nurse said, no, that's not good. So
Yeah.
another doctor came in and said, no, he needs amputation. That has to come off. It's going to be gangrenous pretty soon.
Yeah.
So they flew me into
So
Calgary.
he got a hold of it in Calgary. Yeah.
Flew me into Calgary to the Peter Lougheed Center. That's the vascular center in Calgary. And there on started the surgeries again. She says, we can't do any amputations until we get these vessels working better. So again, they cut me farther up here and farther up here, and she got circulation back down to about just above my
Just above your ankle.
my
she
ankle.
said. Yeah, but she didn't want to leave it too much in case it didn't. When he broke out in these blisters, the skin was so tight because he was so swollen. Then he started getting blisters, and then the blisters would break. And on that leg, he had 3 really big blisters. And so they weren't healing and whatever. So this is why she said, I'm going to try and get it before the blisters. And so that's where she took it off.
And she done the amputation, and that's
Yeah.
when. And from there on, it's been rehab and rehab and rehab.
yeah,
But she was just such a good doctor. Like she would come and you would almost think that she was talking to her dad. Like she had such good bedside
So
manners.
that was June. When did you have
June the 7th was the amputation.
Yes.
And so we're December 16th now.
Yeah, in middle of August. My birthday is August 31st, I said. So
Yeah.
I said I wanted I wanted to walk before my birthday.
Yeah.
So he gave me this temporary leg. And I was up and walking by the time of the birthday. Remember, we went camping.
But you did a lot of therapy in
Yeah, oh yeah.
first,
It was
and, with the parallel bars.
physio and
hopping
more physio. And,
yeah, it was not an easy time.
and
either.
since then, it's just been adjusting the prosthesis.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the
But I
upswing
think-
now.
Oh yeah, he's everything is working out pretty good.
Yeah.
But it was a journey for sure. It was.
Yeah, it was 97 days in the hospital.
For us to live in the hotel, Sandy and I,
Yeah.
and then Annie would come and she spent a few days with me, and because Calgary was not my favorite place to drive, but finally I did drive a bit. I did have a few days that I was on my own, so
Yeah.
so that
No, it was as much a journey for Bub as it was for me. You know, living in hotels, a lot of times nobody else there with you.
no,
You know,
it was not easy.
and not knowing the outcome, you wonder what's gonna happen. Now I don't have a leg. Am I gonna be
Our
in
life has changed absolutely. We can't go shopping all the time, spend all those hours shopping like we used to.
That's not my fault. No, it is. But I thought, I'll never drive again. I just
Yeah,
finished
that was
driving
it.
all this driving we were doing, and I know Ward was looking around finding driving devices for the steering wheel and for left foot accelerator and all this, and I thought, gee, how am I going to get in the car? I can hardly move, So I went down and
So after we got the prosthesis, we're driving down Strachan, I guess it is, and he said, stop at the church lot. He said, I'm going to drive. I said, let me out. But anyway,
very trusting, yeah.
I stayed, and Sandy took the passenger seat,
Yeah.
and he did really good. Like it absolutely shocked me.
Drove
because-
home and drove in the garage. And,
Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, when you haven't you don't really have that feeling or anything.
Well, the thing is, this
And it doesn't-
is stiff,
doesn't-
and I can't bend. Like you can bend your toe down.
Yeah.
I can't bend my toe, so I've got to reach the accelerator and just push. But it's worked good.
So it
worked real
has.
good. We just made a trip to Yorkton. It was Saskatoon,
Saskatoon,
Lemberg, Yorkton, back to here, almost 1,000 miles. So
Yeah.
it worked okay. We done good.
And then we went to Lethbridge the other day
Yeah.
to do some Pandora shopping.
Your $100 Christmas tree.
Yes, yes.
It's over there.
Yeah.
Like ornament. Have to spend 125 now to get the ornament. We used to be 150.
I think that pretty well covers
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
so I
that's,
guess what is
now-
something maybe you guys are looking forward to.
Yeah.
Well, the second biggest highlight after having grandkids was to have great
great
grandkids.
grandkids.
So we're sort of into them now. We've cast the grandchildren aside, and we dote more on the great grandkids now. We have Huxley, our great grandson, was the first one, and then we have a set of twins right here in Medicine Hat. Well, the thing is, they say our generation has seen the most advancements in everything from electronics, which were unheard of in our day, and healthcare, transportation, everything. So, we've seen an awful lot from the
From
first.
outside biffs
To,
all the
yeah, to-
electronics now.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I don't know. I think for me, this successful life that we have had doesn't always come easy. You have to work on it. You just can't take everything for granted.
I think we share the load.
Yeah,
If
we do.
that's- yeah.
Absolutely, we do. When he had the trucking business, no, my job was looking after the children and the meals and everything, and he had his bills that he had to do every night. He had to prorate all the freight and everything, and so my job was looking after the children, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But I think the marriage, you have to be husband and wife too, and not just mom and dad. And that way we were lucky, I think, when we came back to Yorkton, that I had my mom and dad, that would take the kids every
Yeah.
now and again, that we could be just husband and wife.
Yeah.
And that's why I said to Ward and Annie too, when they had Zach, I said, we're taking him. And then you can just have your own time, you know?
Yeah.
And we've done that with all of the kids, I think, you know? And I think it's something that you have to work. It doesn't come easy all the time.
No, you've got to, like I say, you've got to share the load, and one can't be doing more than the other. Even now, Bub does the cooking and I do the dishes and
Yeah.
most of the house cleaning. So we share the load, and we always have.
Yeah, always.
Nobody has gone off by themselves and done their own thing, except when I went moose hunting, and she wouldn't go with me.
I wasn't
So-
asked. I wasn't
But
asked.
trucking, she persevered for 20 years riding around in the truck and put up with me for all those years. So, yeah, you got to share the load. That's what I would say, and be honest to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else that we can.
Perfect. You don't need to.
See if I can kiss.
Just do it. Yep. There you go.
There you go. Yeah.